Hey, Chuck, what would you say to guys who are in a long term marriage or long term relationship who want to have more sex? What's your advice on that?
Well, I would say that everyone's responsible for getting their own needs met and their own needs want. So if you're in a relationship and you're not getting the kind of sex or the satisfaction that you want in the relationship, it's up to you to figure out what's going on. So you're either stuck in a dead relationship that's been dead for a while and you've just been afraid to bury it, or you're not creating the kind of attraction in the relationship that leads to having great sex.
Do you ever wonder, why do I always seem to give so much more than I get? All I want is to be appreciated and loved. Is that asking too much? Why do all the jerks get the hot girls while I get stuck in the friend zone? When will it ever be my turn? If this sounds like you, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Nice Guy Show. This is the podcast that asks the question, how do I break free from the nice guy syndrome so I never have to come in last again? Now here are your hosts, Faisal Coker and Chuck Chapman.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on The Nice Guy Show. My name's Chuck Chapman. I'm here with my co-host, Faisal Coker. And today we're going to talk about 5 ways to fix the dead bedroom. Actually, we're going to talk about 10 ways to fix the dead bedroom because Faisal's bringing his top 5 and I'm bringing my top 5. And so it's kind of a 2-for-1 today where you're going to hear from both of us our own personal advice of what we would do to fix the dead bedroom. So let me just start out with a story. Okay. So my first marriage, it was a sexless marriage. I would say for the vast majority of the marriage, it was a dead bedroom. When my first wife and I first got together, we were having sex all the time. The first, probably even, year or so, 6 months at least, we were having sex quite often. And then all of a sudden it just died. And I didn't know what to do. I just thought that uh, this was kind of what happened in relationships. But because we weren't having sex, we were also not talking about sex. So we just kind of swept it underneath the rug. And so for years, and I was married for almost 20 years, just shy of 20 years, we had sex very rarely. I would say that for most years, we would have sex on average twice a year.
What?
And yeah, I know.
Wow. So one's on your birthday, and one must be what?
Once,
Her
yeah,
birthday.
Christmas and right, exactly. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of guys out there that have this same kind of experience. In fact, the research out there is that 1 in 4 men are in sexless relationships. And a sexless relationship is defined as not having sex for at least 3 months.
Wow. I, you
Yeah,
know, 1 in 4. I reckon
one in
it's
four.
way more. Yeah, I
I
think
would I
you're
would
right
reckon
because
it's more than that as well.
yeah, that server's probably out. So
Yeah.
I reckon it's more than. So Chuck, let me ask you. Let me probe a little bit on
Yeah.
this one because it'll be quite interesting for the readers here.
Listeners.
What listeners? That's one. What happened? I mean, like you said, you suddenly it stopped. I mean, usually things gradually happen, but
Mhm.
how was it suddenly?
Um, this is going way back, so I'm going to try to remember all that happened. But I think in a large part, my nice guy was, I didn't approach, right? And um, actually, it's one of the things that oftentimes, when working with couples that are in sexless relationships, this is what happens is because she's not pursuing you, you assume that she's not interested in sex,
Hmm.
right? And so when I've talked to couples in the past and I've said, why aren't you guys having sex? You know, the the woman oftentimes will say something along the lines of, well, he doesn't ask or he doesn't pursue me or he doesn't act like he's interested. And the guy says, well, you don't act like you're interested, you know. And she's kind of like, well, I've just sort of been waiting on you. And I think that that's one thing that's super super key in this when you're in a relationship, that you actually talk about sex,
Yeah.
the kind of sex, the frequency of sex, that it just becomes a topic that's easily talked about. You would talk about that sex just as easily as, like, what movie do you want to watch tonight?
Yeah, but
But there's
most guys
no
find it. But most guys
really,
find it very, very difficult, though,
they do.
right?
They
Like,
do.
yeah. Did you? I mean, did you find it like? Was it like shame attached to it? Was it taboo or
Yeah,
something? What?
shame, and I've talked about this before. I grew up in a very religious household. We didn't talk about sex.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about sexual needs and desires. And so in this relationship, and my then wife, she came from the same kind of background. So it wasn't something that either of us were used to talking about.
Yeah.
In fact, it felt very um, sort of cringy and shameful to bring up sex. And we do kind of what sort of refer to as the nice guy seduction of, kind of like, you test the waters, let me give you a back rub, oh, she's not saying no. Okay, that must mean that she wants more. Let's slip down a little bit, and uh that's the nice guy seduction technique.
Yeah.
And
I know that
you
one.
know that one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Rather than just being like, hey, you ready for some sexy time?
So,
Yeah.
so when you had uh, you know, when you had a problem and or there was a problem or issue, so would you guys just ignore it and just
Yeah.
like sweep it under the carpet and just move on, like, and not address the white elephant in the room?
Yeah. Our relationship was based on nonverbal communication, and the nonverbal communication was that we made a lot of assumptions about each other.
Oh,
My ex-wife and I, we really didn't have a whole lot of conflict, which on the one hand I thought was kind of good, but now I realize that that was really unhealthy. We didn't have conflict, so there wasn't any friction, so there wasn't any tension, so there wasn't any attention. And we wouldn't bring things up with each other. So something would be
yeah,
bothering me, and rather than bringing it up with her, I would just stuff it down, and she would do the same thing. And after 20 years of that, um, it's just unsustainable any longer. So I always tell guys, if you're not having conflict in your relationship, then there's actually something wrong. When somebody tells me, oh, we never fight, I'm like, I don't know, that there's something else going on there. Because just
yeah.
if you're in a relationship with another human being, you're going to have tension and conflict, and that's just a natural part of being in relationship.
That's
So
that's a pattern. That's a pattern I've noticed as well. I remember at work years ago, and there was a guy, and I said, "Hey," he said, "I've been with this girl for about 15 years," and I said, "Okay, how's it going?" He said, "Yeah, we never argue, we never there's no conflict. It's all
yeah.
routines, same old, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And then we went out, and after one evening, he confessed. He said, "You know what? There is no intimacy. There is no sex." And I noticed that pattern is when there
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
isn't any conflict,
Yeah.
there's a dead bedroom.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get the opposite as well.
Sure.
There's too much
Sure.
conflict and there's no dead
Right.
bedroom,
And then
but
there's,
there is a dead
yeah,
bedroom.
there's a dead
The-
bedroom.
the-
Absolutely. Yeah. It's got to be a balance of that. And again, the idea of the positive emotional tension. Okay. Nice guys hate tension. So what do? We kill the tension. Women need tension in order to feel attraction and attachment. When we kill the tension, we kill the attraction and the attachment. Okay. So what we do is, when there's a conflict that creates tension, we don't address it. And that non-addressing of that tension, then, because we're not leading in the
yeah.
relationship and addressing those things, she feels that, and then starts to slip away because there's no attraction and attachment on her end, because there's no tension and attention to her and the relationship.
So this is really hard concept to understand, right? And I
It
know
is.
that a lot of guys would say, well, it doesn't make logical sense that tension is needed. Why would tension be needed in order for sex, for it to get to sex or any kind of intimacy or connection?
Yeah. Um, well, so I think it comes, it's a primal type of instinctual impulse. So it isn't logical necessarily, but it comes from that sort of leftover primal need to procreate, right? And that, 30,000 years ago out on the Serengeti, when we were tribal people, the men would go off out and they would hunt, and then the women would stay back and take care of the children and the elderly, and they had to entertain themselves somehow. So what they do, they would create drama. There would be this tension. The men would come back from the hunt. The women would be all, about this tension and drama. The men would we're going back out in the hunt,
Yeah,
and
forget
so
this.
right, exactly. And I think that just still kind of exists today, in that the feminine energy needs to feel, okay, because the feminine is all about the emotion and feeling, right? If I'm not feeling you, that tension between us, and see, that's the idea, is like, we think of tension as a bad thing, but you need tension in everything, right? You need tension
Of
in
course
growth. You
you
need,
do.
everything is about tension. And it's not that tension is bad, it's that tension can be uncomfortable. But if we're always in a non-stretch way, then we're never growing, we're never changing. And I think that growth and change is one of those primal human needs. So like why people go back to school, it's why they, we need to grow and we need to change. So
Absolutely. And when you said about tension as well, tension helps. It stretches. That's the word you use.
it
It
stretches, yeah.
stretches our emotion, because just imagine going to a theme park and the roller coaster was real slow. It was like a
It's just
little
flat.
bump.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to a roller coaster that you want all the daring
Right.
swings and rounds and loops and everything. That's what makes it so exciting. Yeah, it's
Right.
scary and it's frightening, but it's also thrilling, and that's what women want to feel. Actually, we all do, but women want to feel this a lot more. And it's like having a bland food. Can you imagine? There's no spices, right? I want to feel that tension. I want to really taste it. And that's the thing with guys. When guys go and create attraction, they don't stretch her emotions. And that's when she says there was no chemistry.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what the guys did. There was no chemistry.
There's no chemistry. And then I think when there's no chemistry, there's no tension. To just kind of tail on that a little bit, it's similar, like, if you go to a game, like a football game or something like that, and it's just really even the whole time, nobody's scoring. It's like 0-0 the whole game. It's like so boring. But if it's, uh, 1-2, and then, it's the last, 3 minutes of the game, it's really exciting because, are they going to tie? That's where all that tension is built up, in that excitement. And so if we're not building that kind of excitement in our relationship, then oftentimes that's going to lead to the dead bedroom.
And
well, why don't we go ahead.
Well, I just want to quickly share this. Here's something interesting, right? She doesn't have to like you in order to be attracted to you, right? There's a lot of times when there's been cases where I remember I was doing this speaking gig, and there was like hundreds of people in the audience, and I was talking about neuroscience a bit, and I was just covering the basics of it. And this lady stands up and she's like, "No, it's not. It's not true." I hadn't finished my presentation, right? Because in part 2, it kind of covered what she was saying. But she got really angry with me, and I kind of calmed her down. And then when the presentation was over, I said, "Look, come over and talk to me when the presentation is done." So I just want to continue with the presentation so it doesn't affect everybody else. And she comes over, she marches over to me, and she's like, "No, that's not true." And I kind of like, we had a bit of a conversation afterwards, and then we exchanged numbers. And right, and she's like, "Call me." And she's really angry. She's really annoyed with me, right? So we exchanged numbers. And then the next day, she's sending me pictures. She's sending me all these lovely text messages. And the guys are like, "What?" I'm like, tension, sexual attraction.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
logical, right? As
Yeah.
David Andrew says, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. The
It doesn't
law,
have to
the
make
world
sense.
of eroticism is very different. And that's what a lot of
Yeah.
smart guys get wrong.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's talk about our 5 ways to cure the dead bedroom. Both of us have come up with 5 different ways. So let me go ahead and share my number 1, and then I'll have you share your number 1, and then we'll just kind of go with that. So Chuck's number 1 way to cure the dead bedroom is to talk about your sexual needs. All right. If you're not talking about it, then you're not creating tension. Right? You need to be talking about your sexual needs and desires. You got into this relationship because the foundation of the relationship was based on sex, right? No guy gets into a relationship thinking, I just want friendship. I just want, somebody to hang out with, No, that you got into it because you wanted sex, right? That was the number 1 thing. So this is when you're in a monogamous relationship or a relationship that's in this container, you say, I am only going to have sex within this container. I have all these other relationships out there. I got a relationship with, my friends. I got relationships with coworkers. Got a relationship with postmen. This is the one relationship in which sex is going to exist in that. And so if you are in a marriage or a committed relationship, the basis of that relationship is based on sex. And women will oftentimes say, well, that's not the only thing. No, it's not the only thing. And it's not what I'm saying. It's not the only thing, but it is the foundation. And if the foundation is broken, then the rest of your relationship is going to crumble. So you have to talk about sex and your needs in order to continuously rebuild and reinforce that foundation in your relationship.
I love that. Absolutely. Open conversation. But obviously we don't know the high pitched voice, do we?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Faisal's 5 ways to cure the dead bedroom. And what I like to do is I like to use one of the principles I teach is sexual charisma, right? So the more sexual charisma you have, the more sex you will have. So rule number 1, it goes to the self, right? Stop watching porn, stop masturbating because you're leaking essential sexual energy, right? And get fit. Simple as that, right? Get off the porn, get off the, incessant masturbation, get yourself in shape, get yourself in order. That's rule number 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Why do you think that is so important?
Because a lot of the times when we don't have our needs met, right? So a lot of the times when the guys are not getting their needs met, they're resorting to, okay, well, I can't do anything about it. I feel helpless. I'm in victim energy. I'll just take the easy route out, right? I'll go and watch some porn. I'll go and masturbate to that. And what happens is that once you've ejaculated, once you've come, you're like, you're passive. And I remember I've done some sexual cleansing, and in order to, amplify my sexual charisma. And one of the things that I did was, I've stopped watching porn. That was like 1st of Jan 2020. That was my commitment. I was like, boom, I'm not gonna watch porn again. And I've stuck to that. And that made a huge difference. One, you stop wasting so much freaking time. That's one thing. And porn is like, it's a drug. You're an addict, and it's easy to become that addict. So I've stopped resorting to porn.
Yeah.
And there was times when I went where I didn't, ejaculate. And what that did was it fires up, it builds up a lot of sexual energy. And I know a lot of the times that nice guys masturbate in order to calm and soothe their anxiety. No, I can't sleep, or I'm way too stressed. It's a lot of masturbation is a anxiety coping mechanism.
It's about killing the tension.
It's killing the tension. It kills the vibe.
Yeah.
And the way she wants to feel your sexual energy, she wants to feel it. And if you come out or go on a date or drained, she's not going to feel that tension. She's not going to feel the sexual vibe, that sexual charismatic aura. So she's not going to feel that.
Sure.
So that's what you're doing. You're killing it.
Yeah. All right.
So
number 2 for For me, number 2
Yeah.
is overcoming sexual shame. This is a big
Oh,
one, especially for nice guys.
yeah.
And it was a big one for me is, and again, based on how I was raised, sex was considered a sin. It was something you don't talk about. And so there was a lot of shame around that. If sex is something that's done in marriage, then why do I want to have sex with all these different women? And if sex is a
Mm.
sin, then I must be a giant sinner. And then that shame piece is there's something wrong with me. There's something broken with me, within me. I am broken. And if we don't work on healing that sexual shame, it can literally be deadly. I have had a client in the past who dealt with so much sexual shame that he committed suicide. And it was one of the most sad
Wow.
things that I have experienced. But this guy, his belief about his sexuality and his shame that went along with that was so high. He used alcohol for years and years and years to cover that. And then, just it was a tragic situation all the way around. But shame is deadly. So you really, if you have any shame, and the shame is the feeling like there must be something wrong with me, I'm broken in some way, there's some sort of taboo that I'm attracted to. It was recently on this retreat with John Wineland, and one of the things we worked on was sexual taboos,
Mm.
and
Can you
just
give it? Can you give it examples of some of them?
yeah, I mean, like just like the most dark kind of sexual taboos that you could think of, and I don't want to share anybody's because of the kind of
I want to hear. Yeah.
confidentiality and stuff like that. I know, right?
Of course. Of
But
course.
but I mean, dark, dark. Probably what you're thinking about right now is what the darkness that we were talking about.
I
You
feel
know,
bad.
I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. Right. And so, oh, I have this thought, therefore I must be this monster, you know,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
it's coming to terms with your taboos. It was such a healing work that we did. The healing wasn't so much around, the healing was around like, I'm in a room with 60 guys and we are sharing scary, dark shit, and we're all holding each other. And it was just it was a beautiful moment. I was impressed at how men are willing to love and give when they're feeling safe.
that's so good. That's so important. That's so important.
Yeah.
When you talked about sexual shame, I call it the sexual fracture. And
Yeah.
growing up, especially in my culture, in Asian culture, sex is, oh, no, 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 we do not talk about sex. It's like, no, it's the most forbidden thing, even on TV. If
Yeah.
there was the Discovery Channel, there's a lion's mating is like,
Yeah.
turn away,
Yeah.
yeah, just turn away. It's like, no, we don't do those things.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I remember that it took me a very long time to actually admit to people, to admit to, like, safe people that I
Mm-hmm.
masturbated. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. You
Mm-hmm.
watch porn? No,
Yeah.
I don't watch
Yeah.
that. So I
Yeah.
would just like lie about it. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
she's really pretty. I would love to fuck her, but I would be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can't say those things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I would have those sexual needs and desires and
Mm-hmm.
fantasies, and the sexual fractures voice. So I have, it's like each fracture, there's 4 fractures. And one of the voice of the sexual fracture is, I'm wrong or I'm bad for thinking those
Yeah.
thoughts or
Yeah.
wanting those thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other fracture part is that, I won't be able to please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't be good enough, satisfy that. So I carried that around for a lot. And I remember one of the ways I healed that, I remember talking to a friend of mine. He's into growth and psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
he was just so relaxed and openly talking about masturbation. And I was just sitting there going,
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah.
being read. I was like,
Yeah. Experience that.
yeah,
Sure.
me too.
Exactly. No, and
I've
that's
done
what
it.
that again, that's where the shame I think comes off, and why it's so important that we as men have other men in our lives. because that's what shame is. I am alone. I am the only one who thinks this. Dark taboo, and for somebody else to say, no, that's me. All of a sudden it normalizes it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this isn't abnormal. Sure, I shouldn't act on this thought, but having the thought isn't, doesn't make me bad. It makes me human. So, we better move on, or we're not going to make it through our list here.
Yeah. Okay. So number 2.
So sexual shame.
So sexual shame is mine is to fix the dead bedroom is to use the AAR model, right? So I have an AAR intimacy model. The AA stands for attention and attraction. So, and the R stands for relationship. Each of them have their own principles. Now, what happens is when you have the dead bedroom, a lot of the times the guys forget the attention and the attraction rules, and they go a lot to the relationship rules. So let me give you an example. In relationship, we need safety and certainty, right? In attraction, we need uncertainty, mystery, surprises, right? And in attraction, right, a lot of times the guys would be unavailable, whereas in relationship skills, he's available. So you got to balance that out. This is what I see a lot of guys do: is they're way too available. They're people pleasers, and that kills sexual attraction. So you got to remember, sexual attraction has its own laws, its own principles. It doesn't make sense. It's not a choice, and it works in its own way. So apply its principles.
I love that. That's great.
So let's
Number three. Well, my number 3 is I call these the 3 types of sex. All right. So there are 3 types of sex. Sex number 1 is like visceral fucking. It's animalistic. It's just like, oh,
right now.
Speaking of taboos, that's that visceral type of sex. The other side of the spectrum is sex that's just like deep and intimacy, and it's almost like this spiritual connection where you're just with your lover and it's tantric and you're like, kind of thing like that. And then the third type of sex is what I call maintenance sex. And maintenance sex is bringing sex into your relationship as a way to create connection, even when you don't necessarily feel like it. All right. Now, most guys will we want one or the other on those 2 spectrums, right? If I'm not having like this deep fucking porn star experience, or if I'm not having this goddess and God connection kind of thing, then the sex isn't any good. It's terrible. So we shy away from them. We get afraid of the sex that's just kind of like, it's a little vanilla, But I think you need that to practice that in order to have these other experiences. That when you have these experiences, they're good. But if your expectation is it's always going to be this crazy, hanging from the ceilings kind of stuff like that your relationship needs to be taken care of in order for it to grow. So
3
what do you think about that?
So, yeah, well, when you said maintenance sex, I thought, do I have to dress up as a fucking plumber and then
right?
I'm here to.
Well, that would bring in, that might that totally. I think you should do that, and then and then it kind of. But I think in that maintenance sex, you can start to learn to play with it and have it kind of thing. Where, it's like, okay, we're going to have sex on a regular basis, right? And then it's like, let's bring some fun and levity into it as well.
Nice role play. I love that. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
So my number 3 is seducer, right? Learn the art of seduction. This is where I kind of struggled a little bit, and even though I had plenty of sexual activity in my life, what I realized was a lot of guys are terrible seducers. We've lost the art of charm, seduction, and charismatically do this. So the principles I teach is seduce her mind. Yeah.
Mm.
Seduce her intellectually, emotionally, energetically. And then the last part, right? Even seduce her environmentally. And that means, uh, taking a nice walk, right? Going somewhere nice where there is more, where you feel relaxed. That's environmental seduction. Intellectual is like you have great topics, great debates, and you can talk about it and be still fun with it. Emotional is you talk about deep stuff that's high and low, kind of like a roller coaster ride. Right. And this energy stuff is, you bring that masculine energy, leadership, knowing what you want. So that's a energetic seduction. And then comes the physical seduction. And gents, it's patience, it's slow, it's teasing. Yeah, I know we want wham
Build the
bam, thank you,
anticipation.
ma'am. That's it. Yeah, we that's what we want. But for her, it's the tease. One of my longest seduction was like 6 months long. Yeah, I it was like a challenge. And I remember saying to her, look, I can do anything to you, but you cannot do anything to me. You can't even touch me. And she's like, what kind of rule is this? I said, fucking thank me about it. And it just brought her to like melting point every time. I have this connection with my lover. It's like we bring this ability to get close, have different types of sex, 1 and 2 types of sex, but also bring the seduction in. It's mental seduction. So guys, become charismatic seducers.
Yeah, that's so great. And that really segues to my number 4, which is awaken the energies of arousal. I think oftentimes us guys, nice guys in particular, we're in our heads and we're thinking about sex. We're anticipating sex, and the sexual energy is just coming from our big head, not the little head. And we are not in our bodies when it comes to sex, and we're not creating energy within our body, where you're feeling the arousal more than just, in your nether regions. You're feeling, you can feel the bottoms of your feet being sexually aroused. If you can feel that, if you can start practicing that with all these aspects of your body, then I think one of the things that starts to happen is you're awakening these energies. And again, it's the masculine and feminine energies that create attraction and attachment, right? So the masculine, feminine, what does the masculine, feminine, a nut and a screw, it's masculine, feminine. What does the nut and the screw do? It makes connection. It joins something together. So the masculine and feminine is all about creating connection. The way you create connection is within your body. And the more you bring the sexual energies throughout your body, and that can be a practice of things like mindfulness, breathing, but it's getting out of your head and into your body. And when you're bringing a full body experience into the sexual experience, then you're more likely to have those, those experiences that are, those sort of mind-blowing experiences. And your energy is about your enthusiasm. It's about your ability to create that attraction and anticipation in her and the anticipation in yourself. And much like you were saying, Faisal, it's this seduction piece of it. It's building that anticipation. So awaken the energies of arousal in your body. That's my number 4.
I love that. That was good. I love your dirty talk as well. Nuts and bolts,
Nuts and bolts, right?
Yeah.
The nut goes into the bolt, or is the bolt goes in? I don't know.
So so I get that. Absolutely, awaken the energies, and that's that kind of tells me, sometimes a lot of nice guys come from a logical point of view, and you cannot logically attract a woman. That just doesn't work, right? This is why you need to build those energies. That creates chemistry. All right. So my number 4, and this is so important when it comes to sexual attraction. Don't take it personally, right? You are going to get rejected. She's going to push you away. She's going to challenge you. She's going to give you all the shit tests, right? Do not lose your masculine frame, get butthurt, have a tantrum, get upset, get all needy and say, oh, I'm not getting my needs met. That's the most important thing, is like, no worries. So the superpower you want to have is for attraction to really come alive, is the most powerful man is the man who's willing to walk away. Right?
Yeah.
Don't get tantrum. Don't get butthurt. Yeah. Just remember, be willing to walk away and like, hey, cool, no worries. Off, and you're smooth, silky about it, and you can come back and reapproach at any time. Yeah. That's the most important thing, is just because she says no right now, it doesn't mean it's no forever.
Right. Yes.
It might be you haven't done enough seduction. You haven't warmed her up. You haven't done enough foreplay, mental foreplay, energetic foreplay. You haven't done enough connection building. Maybe there's not enough empathy. Maybe there's not enough time and patience in it. All you've done is become way too needy, way too thirsty, and all you want is just fuck, and that's it.
Yeah. And I think she can feel that, right? Of it's not I want to join with you. It's I want to get something from you. I want you to make me feel better. And she'll feel that neediness in you, and that's not what she's attracted to at all. So
great way to put it.
Number 5 I have is the ABF, or what I call always be flirting. That
I like those.
You should always be flirting with your spouse, your partner. Creating that tension. That it's just kind of a normal practice. Rather than getting butthurt. And I don't do this perfectly all the time. When my wife will say something to me that, might make me feel a little butthurt or something like that, I'll take it and I'll turn it around and I'll just kind of flirt with that, sort of, like we were just doing with the nuts and bolts thing, it's like, oh, you're gonna, like, I want, you need to take out the garbage. Ooh, I'll take out the garbage. I'll take out the garbage. All right. I'm going to take out the fucking garbage. And then, I'm going to come over and I'm going to pick you up and take you out to the garbage. Just that kind of
that's
thing
rubbish.
Of tussle. That's rubbish. Right. Yeah. I'm going to take your rubbish. But to always be flirting, because when we do that, again, it's creating that tension, and it's the positive tension. She's creating negative attention. Go take out the garbage. And then I'm like getting butthurt because, all you ever want me to do is take out the garbage. But if I can take that and add the tension to it, like, woman, you be careful. I'm going to take you out to the garbage, kind of thing. Right. And again, just playful banter. That's always being flirting, and that always being flirting will also help you to not drop into that lower state of getting butthurt.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Acronyms, ABF. I'm going to steal that one as well.
Okay.
So I've got acronym as well. So now we're speaking with it. Mine is ABLE, able, right? You want to be an able man. You want to be a charismatic, able man. And able stands for always be leading and escalating, right? So always be leading and escalating. Here's the thing. Leaders have this dominant energy, right? If you haven't got the dominant energy of grabbing her by the throat, putting her against the wall and fucking her, if you haven't got that energetically, right, she's not going to get so excited about you, right? So if you haven't got that, a lot of nice guys, have this problem with the word dominant. They're like, oh my God, it's really poor. In the world of erotic world, right? Dominant, right? I mean, for example, 50 Shades of Grey. It wasn't about the nice guy who came along and said, please, miss, do you mind if I insert myself inside of you?
Right.
And if that's okay, here's the form, press click and be okay with that. No, the guy was dominant. He knew what he wanted. And that's the law of eroticism, right? Know when to use those laws and principles, right? You can't just go around using it everywhere, but just knowing when to step into that.
That's where I think that tension of where it's safe and dangerous at the same time. there's this sort of tension that exists between that, right? We know what the limits are. We have sort of a safe word, whatever kind of thing like that, but that you're safe in this dominance. And when you're safe in the dominance, then that creates that anticipation, that attraction, that escalation that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. When one of the most important things I talk about is I know Robert Glover had the 3 T's. I have the 5 T's.
Yeah.
And the last T
Okay.
is called the temperature, right? You calibrate to your partner. And this is what a lot of guys don't know. When you calibrate, right? So calibrate is adjusting yourself to seeing where she is. If you're way too far forward, if you're like too hot, right? She's going to get burnt. So you just cool down a bit. If you're too cold, right? She's not going to feel that warmth, right? So you just got to be the right temperature on this. And sometimes a lot of guys forget that women have sexual history where they might have been pushed, abused, or anything like that. Yeah, abused. So what you have to, I've been with women where they've had not great history of sexual history, and there were times when, she would get really emotional, she would cry, or she would have like something come up for her, and the old Faisal would have been, oh my God, I did something wrong, I'm panicking, I'm trying to fix her. The new Faisal was like a leader. It was like the lighthouse, the cool, calm, collected. They don't take it personally. Calibrated with her, put my arms around her. Just check in where she is, right? If you're thirsty, you're needy, you're out of control, you're not going to pick those clues up, right? So most of the time, just
so you basically kind of lead her out of that trauma back into the here and now with your presence, as opposed to like just getting upset and hurt and withdrawing because of whatever. I love that's really, really powerful. I had never really thought of it like that before, but I think that's great because similarly at relationships where the woman has had sexual abuse and a similar kind of reactions to that, and and my younger self didn't know how to handle that, and so I would just shut down, withdraw, or whatever. But I love that idea of just being able to stay present, bring her, get on her level, calibrate it. You calibrate with her, and then you bring her back up into the higher calibration. That's beautiful.
So you stay grounded, you pace and lead, you match her pace, and then you bring her out. And I've known when I started really stepping into this masculine essence, some of the women have reported like, my anxiety levels have gone down. I feel more sexually relaxed. I've even had girls say to me, you know what, my periods, they've come back, or they've really improved, which is, it just shows there's a lot of sexual, they're not comfortable around this area because a lot of guys don't know how to lead. And when I say a lot of guys, I was one of those guys, so I had to learn this.
I think it's even true. Like if she's angry, you can calibrate with her at that place, and then bring her back up to a higher place where you're creating that flirtation and tension and stuff like that. So I think it's really good.
It's all about leading over. So Chuck, any last takeaways? Any kind of like last tip you want to give them?
I would say that if you're in the dead bedroom, kind of going back to what we said at the beginning, it's your responsibility to figure things out. We've given you 10 different ways in which you can start increasing the attraction and the sexual energy within your relationship. So you can start there. I would also say that there are relationships that are truly dead. There's no breathing life back into them. And you're going to have to grieve that loss. You're going to have to move on and find a relationship where it is alive. Yet, oftentimes we're so invested in a relationship, it's sort of that sunken cost fallacy, that we stay in this dead relationship. The foundation has crumbled, it's gone, but we stay in that. And so I would really encourage guys Like if you're, and one of the things Robert says, is like, if your relationship isn't going well, it's your problem. You're either not doing what you need to do to increase the sexual energy and the connection and the attraction and all of that, or you're in a relationship that's been dead a long time ago and you're staying in it. So my takeaway is, if you're in a dead bedroom, do something about it. Either start creating the attraction that breathes life back into it, or bury it.
I love that. I love that. Such a powerful note on that one. So my tip would be, a lot of the times when it comes to sexual attraction, we guys are very logical thinkers, and we don't really believe this. Like, no, that won't work. This won't work.
Sure.
That won't work. Right. So there's a lot of nice guys are non-believers. Here's my invitation. Pick up romance books, erotic novels written by women, right? You will go into a completely different world. You will go into what women find arousing, erotic, and it'll shake your world up, because there'll be things in there. They'll be like, what? That doesn't make sense. Why is that exciting for her? Right. For example, she might have a sexual fantasy, right? Women have these amazing fantasies and stories. And it's, for us, it's like, bam, bam, thank you, kind of like fantasy. Hers is like, he came in and he looked deep into my eyes, and that glare, that tension, I just knew I wanted him. There was a whole foreplay to it. Right? So I know the guys I've, like, where is the sex part? I'm like, it's probably down in chapter 12. Where is it? It's like, she's talking about what? She's talking about her day and shopping and fans. It's like, where is this part? So, guys, pick up erotic novels and really slow down. Patience. Yeah. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
It's fast. Yes, I love that saying. That reminds me of my wife doesn't read necessarily erotic novels or anything like that, but she has two favorite types of genres when it comes to movies. One is Christmas movies, like Hallmark Christmas movies, where it's always like this, there's this tension. You could write the story as you're watching it. You know what's going to happen. That, guy comes in, there's this tension, there's this, are they going to get together? Aren't they going to get together? Kind of tension that leads up to that part of her. It builds up the escalation. And so I think that's one of those things that we guys, again, we shy away from that. Oh, she's upset with me. She doesn't want to be with me. Okay, let me run and hide.
Exactly. Just because she's upset doesn't mean that she's not sexually attracted to you. One thing that's really confusing and doesn't make logical sense is she can be annoyed with you, pissed off with you, angry with you, and be sexually attracted to you, right?
Yeah.
Get that, right? So she doesn't always have to like you to be sexually attracted to you. And she also can like you and not be sexually attracted to you.
Yeah. And you want to know what the other kind of show that she likes to watch?
What's the other one?
Serial killers. So it's either Christmas movies or serial killers. And that right there, right, again, it's that tension. That's that darkness. And it's the light and levity. And so, finding that interplay between those two things is really important.
Oh, the dark side. That is an interesting one as well. So, women love men who can take them to the edge, of the dark side as well. So, Chuck, I want to be able to help the guys even more with this, right? So if guys who are in a relationship, because you work with a lot of guys who are in marriages, long-term relationships, how can they get your help and support if they want to find out, hey, Chuck, I've got this dead bedroom. What can I do? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah. Well, my website is niceguyhelp.com. And you can go there and get information about how to connect with me, about the work that I do, and how I can help you move from the dead bedroom to a place of excitement and fulfilling sex within your relationship, or you get to the point where it's like, okay, this is something that's dead and should have been buried a long time ago, and then how to move on from that. So, like I said, it's your responsibility for your own needs, wants, and happiness. And if your needs, wants, and happiness aren't being fulfilled, it's your responsibility to make those needs, wants, and happiness fulfilled in your life. And if you're looking for how to create more charisma and attraction in your relationship, how can guys get in contact with you, Faisal?
Awesome. So if you go to www.masculine.co, what I have is a masculine charisma blueprint, and I have some modules in there. One of the modules is charismatic sexuality, and that's where charismatic seduction and sexuality, that's where a lot of guys struggle with, is, you know, being that guy women are just waiting to rip their clothes off, right? I wasn't that guy. I was more of the tech, the nerdy guy. A lot of the guys I'm working with are like, that, like, the bland, the average guy.
Yeah.
Once they go through the blueprint, when they go through the course and the training, is they learn some basic sexual attraction principles, and women go crazy. I mean, some of the guys that send me text messages, screenshots are like, look what's happening. Look how much she desires me, wants me. I had a client, and he had a problem of like no women. The next thing you know, he has a different problem. He says, right, how do I manage all of these women? My anxiety's coming up. It's too much now. I don't know how to manage myself. Right.
Yeah.
So it was, I said, you've got a good problem now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, so what are we going to do for our next podcast?
All right. So speaking on the theme of sex and, dead bedroom and everything, let's talk about one of the things that's really affecting men right now is low libido. Right?
Low sex drive.
Low sex drive, erectile dysfunction, all of these things, right? So I reckon, we should definitely talk about how to boost our libido, right? The 4 ways we can boost our libido, feel more passionate, more sexual, where, you feel enjoy having a active sexual life, even if you're single. We will go through some of the principles that you can do. And if you're in a long-term relationship, how to get some more, even more.
How to get some more. And I think especially as we age as men, I'm older and I could kind of start to experience that low libido, that low sex drive, that almost a little bit of like, okay, not that interested in it some days, just because my libido is low. And that there are things that we could do physiologically to increase our libido. Part of the libido is as men age, they start to lose their testosterone, and the levels of testosterone and things like that, and managing those things and ways to increase, whether it's with supplements or testosterone, bringing that testosterone level up, exercise, those kind of things that you can do to increase the testosterone, which can increase the libido. And we'll talk about that next time on our podcast, the 4 proven strategies every nice guy needs to boost their libido.
Looking forward to that one. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you in the next episode.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show, the podcast that helps nice guys move past their insecurities and fears into the fullness of their masculine strength and confidence. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and check out the website niceguyshow.com for more information on how to connect with Chuck and Faisal. Until next time, keep living your best life.